Wow, there's people on the balconies all the way on the top. Great. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be here. Thank you very much. It's great to be back in South Carolina, a place that believed in me. In fact, your great former Senator Jim DeMint was the first person in Washington that supported me when the only people that thought I could win all lived in my home. And 4 of them were under the age of 10. But it's an honor and a pleasure to be with you here today. It's a long way from where I come from, not just geographically, but literally. You know, both of my parents were born into poor families in Cuba. My father never really got to go to school, by the way. When he was 9 years old, his mother passed away, and he had to go to work. He would work for the next 70 years of his life. My mother was one of 7 girls that was raised by a disabled father who had polio when he was a child, and he really struggled to provide for them. They met, they got married, they worked hard, they tried as much as they could, but they were like most of the people that have ever lived. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't get ahead. They didn't come from a rich or politically connected family. So in 1956, they made the decision to leave behind the only country they had ever known and come to the one place on earth where people like them could have a chance. Here in America, my parents never became rich or famous. They worked hard and they persevered. My father was a bartender. My mother was a cashier, a maid, a stock clerk at Kmart. Like I said, they were never rich or famous, but they were successful. They were successful because just less than a decade removed from that despair that I described to you, they found good jobs. They owned a home. They raised a family, and they left all 4 of their children better off than themselves. They lived what came to be known as the American dream. Their story is not that unusual in the 20th century. The 20th century is known as the American century. For starters, because America was the most powerful nation on the earth, called upon not once but twice to help the world confront and defeat evil. Our economy was the envy of the world. An economy that had millions of jobs, including for people like my parents, with limited skills, but that paid enough for them to achieve a better life. But now, in the early years of this new century, everything feels so different. There's questions about whether America is still the most powerful country in the world. China is increasingly claiming territory in the South China Sea. Vladimir Putin invades his neighbors. Iran continues to carry out its efforts to dominate the Middle East, and radical jihadists behead Christians and even conduct attacks in Texas. And America, under Barack Obama, appears unable to do anything about these things. At home, there's questions about whether the American dream will survive for much longer. You have millions of people now living paycheck to paycheck, working hard, but one unexpected experience away from catastrophe. Millions of young Americans that went to school and got a degree, and now they owe thousands of dollars in student loans, and their degree didn't lead to a job. And for the first time in 35 years, you have more small businesses dying than being born. So why is this happening? Why is this happening to the greatest nation on earth? And at its core, the reason is this: because the economy and the world all around us is undergoing historic and dramatic changes. But we are still led by too many people who are trapped in the past, by ideas that no longer work. What it reminds us is that we are at a hinge moment in our nation's history where we must decide whether we will embrace the future and confront its challenges or be left behind by history. And if we choose to embrace the future, I want you to believe, as I do, that the 21st century will not just be as good as the 20th century. It will be better. And the American dream will not just survive, it'll reach more people and change more lives than ever before. But to do this, we have to wake up to the reality that yesterday is over. That the time has come to turn the page, to be proud of our history, but to embrace our future. America's always been about the future. And put in place an agenda that allows us once again, not just to reclaim the American dream, but to expand it, to reach more people and change more lives than it ever has. It begins by accepting the mantle of global leadership, by understanding that we have to, because there's no nation in the world that can do it instead of us. And that begins by having the strongest military power in the world. It continues by working with our allies in Asia to stand up to China's efforts to borders and boundaries and control the sea and shipping lane, the air and shipping lanes of Asia. In Europe, by reinvigorating NATO to prevent Vladimir Putin from redrawing the lines of Europe. In the Middle East, by working with our allies to confront Iran's ambitions to dominate the region. And by standing firmly with the only pro-American free enterprise democracy in the Middle East, the great state of Israel. And perhaps as important as anything else, by rallying the world not just to contain radical jihadists, but to defeat them. When people ask, what should our strategy be on global jihadists and terrorists? I refer them to the movie Taken. Have you seen the movie Taken? Liam Neeson? He has a line, and this is what our strategy should be. We will look for you, we will find you, and we will kill you. At home, we need leaders that understand that our economy today is engaged in a massive and global competition for investment, for innovation, and for talent. Our outdated leaders, they think we can keep taxing and regulating as much as we want, but we can't. Because today we must compete with dozens of other countries who are doing everything they can to be more competitive than us. And that's why we need reforms to our tax code and to our regulations, so that America once again becomes the best place in the world to work, to start a business, or to invent a new product. That's why we need reforms to spending. We need the combination of rapid economic growth and entitlement reforms and other spending measures that allow us to once again balance our budgets. And we need to repeal and replace Obamacare, a law that actually discourages people from taking raises and promotions at work. We also need leaders that understand that in the 21st century, the best paying jobs of this new century require more skills than ever before. But we have an outdated higher education system that is leaving far too many people behind, stuck with loans and degrees that don't lead to jobs. Degrees that too many of our people today have found are inaccessible to them because they have to work full-time and raise a family. In essence, my point that I'm trying to make to people as I talk about this is the election of 2016. It's not just a choice about what laws we're going to pass. It's not just a choice about what party is going to govern our country. It's the fundamental question of what kind of country we're going to be in this new century. And if we want it to be, it can be the greatest era in American history. I'm running for president, and I'm here today, and I'll be here a lot to ask for your vote. Because while America owes me nothing, I have a debt to America that I will never be able to repay. But I believe that I must try to ensure that the people that are trying to do for their children what my parents did for me can still do it in this new century. And if we can achieve that, we will usher in that new American century. The future will be better than our past. And our children and grandchildren will be the freest and most prosperous Americans that have ever lived. Thank you so much, and God bless you.